Hello everybody and welcome to our webinar. I'm so happy you could all be here and I look forward to working with you. I want to tell you we have a wonderful staff behind the scenes here who I've invited to comment, and I've invited them to move in, and they are wonderful helpers to make this possible. So I just want you all to know that this isn't just a one-man show. I have on the screen here a few notes on how to make sure that you can hear me well and I can hear you. Show my screen.
Yeah, we're not seeing the notes. There you go.
Okay. Are you okay now with that? Can you see that now?
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. See why I have wonderful staff? Everybody's so helpful. Okay, so on the screen, see, because I see it, I thought you guys could see it, but no. So look at your audio block, and that is the area, as you can see, that is got a red circle around it. And right here, you can see my cursor, there's a mic. Make sure that that is, first of all, there's an audio, and you might have a plus sign on yours, not a minus sign. If you hit the plus sign, it'll open up this. And then you just have to hit the mic, make sure that you can hear me, and then when it's time for you to speak, we can hear you. Okay, so what that little, plus sign does, it expands these two little buttons. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next screen, which is about noise protocols. We have you all right now on mute, and the mute button for us is something that looks like a microphone, and we have you, from our end it looks like there's a line going through it. One of the reasons we do that is because there's a tremendous amount of noise that the computers make. And if all the computers are on, it makes a cacophony of loud noise. Sometimes it sounds like bubbles in water, and sometimes it sounds like screeching, and whatever it is, it's not welcome. So we want to just hear your voices. As a result, the way the system here works, it's like being in a class, and one can raise their hand. So you have this button here, which is for raising your hand. There's a hand there, and there's an arrow. The arrow points in the direction you want the hand to go. So if if the arrow is down, that means you're off, you're not on. And if the arrow is up, it gives us an idea that your hand is raised, and we will call upon you. Okay, and then all you have to do is we unmute you, and then all you have to do is speak. There can be a delay due to internet connections, and if and when we turn everybody on, in other words, we take the mute off, we ask everyone to self-mute themselves so that, again, we don't hear all the noise. And then you unmute yourself when you're ready to speak. Now, if you have trouble with the mic and if you have trouble connecting to us, there is an area that looks like this, where this circle is, where you can actually type in a question. And we have enough people behind the scenes on our staff that will keep their eyes open for any questions or any messages you are sending our way. I hope all of this is clear. If not, raise your hand. As a matter of fact, everybody raise your hand. Make sure that you know how to get that raise your hand function working. So let's do that. Let's everybody raise their hand. So I have a few people that have raised their hands. There's still quite a few that have not. Is that right? So everybody raise your hand, and then we all know that you know where the button is, and we can see your hand is raised. Okay, there's still Patricia and Stephen and Tiffany and William. Do please, if you get a chance, raise your hand. Marion, Linda, please, Helen, please raise your hands. Unless you're not at the computer. Not everybody's raised their hand. Well, I don't want to take too long with this. Okay, a few more have raised. Thank you very much. A few more. Come on, raise your hands. Okay, so not everyone is raised, but in any event, now you can put your hand down. And so you click that button so that your hand is off. That's it. Some of you are doing it beautifully. Thank you so much. Just take your hand back down again, because if your hand is raised, then we'll ask you, oh, you have a question? So Linda, you need to put your hand down unless you specifically have a question. Thank you. Monica, you need to put your hand down. And William, you need to put your hand down now. Thank you, Monica and William. Thank you, guys. Perfect. Okay, we can proceed. So I think the best way to work with this is we're going to start with the little teaching that we have on the Antahkarana, and then from there we'll proceed to more and more questions that are totally unrelated. But as I'm going along, if you feel you'd like to ask a question related to the subject matter, please do raise your hand so that we don't, skip over that part of whatever question you might have. So what we have here in our first slide is education in the New Age. By the way, all the material that I'm going to be talking about is right out of our blue books. It's all of the Alice Bailey books. And some of them are quotes and some of them are not. So if anybody needs to make reference to anything, hopefully I have the material available for you. So it tells us that our esoteric education during this new age that we are living in right now concerns the building of this bridge of light that we call the Antahkarana. Now, Antahkarana is called a bridge, and that's why we're seeing a rainbow bridge. It's also referred to as a rainbow bridge. And when we see the word rainbow, we automatically think of colors in the rainbow. So proceed with the work of building the Antahkarana, we are told, and light will shine upon your way, and revelation will attend your steps. What a wonderful, wonderful thing to think about, right? That if we work on building the Antahkarana, light will shine upon our way, and revelation, we will have revelation coming to us. And that is a direct quote from Master DK or Dwal Kul, and it's from Raise and Initiation. So it is a science. It's called the science of the Antahkarana. This Antahkarana is composed of a triple thread, 3 threads, which exist from the very beginning of time, from the minute you incarnated thousands of years ago to now. And it links each one of us to our monadic source. And what do I mean by our monadic source? It is our spirit self. It is the spirit. Now, this drawing that we have here is by Francis Donald, who is on staff at the Morya Federation, and he's a wonderful artist. What he's depicted here, as you can see, is man down here, and we can see that within man there is a lighted area. So within man there is an Antahkarana, and that this Antahkarana can be thought of as going up to, whoops, didn't mean to do that, be going up to the solar angel, which is the soul, and then to the top here, which is the monad, and even beyond. And that's one interpretation of this beautiful drawing. Another interpretation is that all of that is self-contained in this image down below here, and that what we're seeing here is moving up to hierarchy, which is where all souls abide and where all the work is done to help humanity and all the subhuman kingdoms move forward, and then up to Shambhala. So there's 2 ways of looking at this drawing. It can be looked at as microcosmically or more macro, ourselves and beyond. Now, the goal of all aspirants, and we are all aspirants, whether we consider ourselves disciples or aspirants, so the goal of all aspirants and disciples is to become aware of this stream of energy in its various diversifications, and then to consciously to employ these energies. And if anything, I would have to bold and underline this word to consciously, because for the longest time we work with creating this Antahkarana unconsciously, and we'll go into that in a few minutes. So what working in the New Age with the Antahkarana concerns itself is bridging, and there's that word again, bridging a gap in consciousness between the three aspects of mind. And what are those three aspects of mind? Some of you already know all of this. I know it's repetitive for those of you that do know. Some of you might be new to this information, so we'll go through it. So we have our lower concrete mind, which is the part of us that does all our thinking and our analyzing. It is the part that we connect to on an everyday basis. That's the lower concrete mind. So it bridges between the lower concrete mind and the soul. The soul is that part that is considered the higher self, or your true essence, or who you truly are, and whatever other names you may call the soul. So therefore, by bridging these two, it produces at one-ment between the personality and the lower concrete mind right here are very related, and the soul. So that's the first bridge in a way. And then between the lower mind, the soul, and the higher mind. So the higher mind is considered our abstract mind. It is the mind where we get ideas and concepts. It's called the mind of God on its higher level, and the higher mind for us is a reflection of that. So that Antahkarana, or that bridge, bridges then the lower mind, the soul, and the higher mind. We'll go into more detail, and so you'll have a much better understanding. So this is just an overview here. So we're told that the Antahkarana is the bridge that the man builds. And how do we build that? Through meditation, through understanding, and the magical creative work of the soul. Yeah, the work of the soul is magic. So it doesn't just happen on its own. As for the longest time, we've been building the very, very basics on our own. The rest has to be created consciously. So what are these three threads? They are the life thread, or sometimes in some books it's called the Sutratma. So that goes from the spirit self, from the monad, right down to our physical form. From the moment we incarnate. This is our life. Then we have the consciousness thread, which works from below upwards, because this is what we are building. The consciousness thread is what we are building. The rest of it happens on its own. The creative thread is the thread that links us to, I can say, that helps create the personality. Is the creative thread, and that is done most of the time unknowingly, unconsciously. We just work on getting smarter, more education. Through eons of time, we are creating a personality. That's the creative thread. It's done unconsciously. The life thread is also unconscious, but the consciousness thread, that is our work. This is what we have to do consciously. So the life thread comes directly from the monad, or the one, to the personality, which is where our identity for the most part is. When you call yourself by name, you have a certain identity. The way you think about yourself is your identity. That is basically our personality. So it goes from that life, which is the spirit self, the monad, to the personality via the soul. This thread is anchored in the heart, and the bloodstream is its reflection. We've heard the expression, blood is the life. This is where the seed of life, or the pure spirit, is anchored, called the Sutratma, or sometimes even the silver cord, as we've seen in some of the various books. This is the life thread that when it snaps, or when it withdraws, this is when you die, right? This is when it draws out, it draws out the life, so that the body no longer has life within it. The consciousness thread, on the other hand, is known as the intelligence thread, and it comes directly from the soul. It is anchored in the head. This is the seat of consciousness, because the soul is found on the plane of mind. So it's really related with intelligence, with the mind, and it feeds the psychic unfoldment, or known as the golden thread. And this is where you can be what they call brain dead. You can be brain dead. No consciousness any longer is anchored in the head. That consciousness thread has withdrawn or has gotten snapped. But you could still be alive because the life thread is still attached. It is the consciousness thread that we usually travel every night in our dream state, and we move out into various planes, into various experiences. It is through this consciousness thread. Sometimes we have dreams that are very vivid, that are very meaningful. However, most of the dreams are not. Most dreams just replay our everyday experience. So these two threads, the life thread and the consciousness thread, are the heavy-duty threads we're talking about. The creative thread, or the thread of creativity, is initiated by man himself, and when it moves through the various bodies, through the various chakras, and finally finds itself anchored in the throat, this is where certain kind of creativity comes, because the throat chakra, for those that may not know this, is where the mind is galvanized. The mental vehicle, it works through the throat center. So by the time that the throat center is fairly active and really functioning, one can create, one can write, draw, be creative on the physical plane. And so therefore this thread feeds the matter aspect. So we have the matter aspect, which is the personality. We have the consciousness aspect or consciousness thread, which is the soul. And we have the life thread, which is the spirit self or the monad. Any questions so far? I hope that sets the basis for this. Now, taking it even a little further. So the path, what we call the path of outgoing, is through that life thread. Through that life thread, way up in the monad, it moves through the various planes right down to the physical plane. Anchors itself in the sacral center at first. This is where I want, and I need to have, and you gather things, all material things that you want for yourself, till eventually it moves up to the throat center, because the sacral center and the throat center are resonating with one another. One is the higher correspondence of the other. Okay, so this is through the life thread. It anchors itself right down into the physical plane. And then the soul in incarnation starts to develop sentiency or consciousness upon the physical plane. And how does it do that? Well, it does it through the etheric first, then through the astral, or what we call the emotional body, and then later through the lower mental mind. In other words, the concrete mind that we talked about earlier. And later, it bridges the gap through meditation, through service, through understanding between the three mental parts. It is the lower concrete mind, the son of mind, which is the soul, and then later on the higher mind. So it completes the creation of the path of return to the center, which is the monad, but it parallels that outgoing. So it parallels this. This was the downward flow of energy. This is the upward. And the upward is much harder, because here's where we're starting to work consciously, right? We're starting to move through the various planes consciously. The first part is done unconsciously. The next part has to be done consciously. This is where the work comes in. So if I haven't totally confused you, we'll look at some definitions now. So the word Antahkarana, it's a Sanskrit term. It is the name given to the bridge that connects the lower mind with the soul, and the connection between the soul and later on the monad via the spiritual triad. What is the spiritual triad? I'm throwing so many different words to some of you, I know, I'm sorry. But the spiritual triad is a threefold combination of energies that we travel through, or we get to eventually resonate to on our way up to the monad. It is reflective of the mind, true intuition, which is the mind is manas, true intuition is buddhi, and then of course the will of the spirit, which is atma. We'll go into that again in greater detail as we move through this. I just didn't want anything to bypass us without you really understanding the words. Oops, sorry.
Adrian has a question if you want to take it, Eva.
Thank you. So we are, I don't see a hand up. Is it a written question? Okay,
no,
could you read it to me?
Her hand is up.
Oh, Adrian, yes. Thank you, Adrian, and I will unmute you. There you go, Adrian.
Thank you, Eva. Hello.
Hello.
I was just going back to the life thread, dropping initially down into the sacral center and then eventually coming up to the throat center. I have a couple of questions. Does it come up and lodge in the solar plexus and then lodge in the heart and then lodge in the throat, or does it just go straight to the throat? And also, when, at what point in this vast time of development we all hopefully go through, when does that happen or start to happen?
Okay, those are very good questions. Nothing happens quickly.
No.
Nothing happens quickly. So when I say that it moves up to the throat, it's not like it's bypassing everything else. All these centers get stimulated and they start to open up and they start to vibrate and to spin in different directions as we develop different aspects of ourselves. When the time comes that the sacral center energy moves then up towards the throat center, it's a certain point in one's development. And that what's the word I'm looking for? That resonance between the two of them is directly between the two of them. Just like the solar plexus, which is our emotional base, eventually goes towards the heart, right? And the base of the spine eventually goes towards the top of the head. So each one of them has reference points where we refer one energy to the other, but it has a lot to do with where we are on the path and how evolved we are. I cannot say that it skips all the other ones, because all the other ones are still moving along and progressing at their own rate and their own speed. But the reference between the sacral and the throat is just that, because there's a real resonance between the two. Where, when, and where does it happen? It happens as one is starting to develop character, as one is starting to develop a personality. This is, well, maybe on the probationary path, right? It's even before soul has started to influence the life. Okay, so it's before soul influence is there. And they're sort of all connected, because once the throat center is fairly active and fairly awakened, there is a lot more creativity. And that creativity, because this is where the center or the location of the mind is, one is propelled to start becoming more educated and hopefully start to read more, to understand life more. And that creates greater progress along the path. That's the whole idea of the path of probation, which builds character. You start to see flaws within yourself. You start to experiment. Do I want to change a certain aspect of myself? Do I want to build in greater quality? All of that is part of the probationary path. And all of that, the creative thread, is part of what is built up early on in our evolutionary process. When I say early on, I don't mean in several lifetimes. It's taking thousands of lifetimes to reach this point. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's brilliant. Very, very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So you'll put your hand, oh, wonderful, Adrian. Excellent. Okay, we're going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is a chart that at first glance you go, oh my God, what is this? This is a chart that eventually, if you haven't yet become totally familiar with, you will. This is the chart that represents the constitution of man, which is who we are. This is the chart that is the physical etheric body, so to speak, of our planetary life. See, if you look on the side here, right here, it reads the 7 planes and 49 subplanes of the cosmic physical plane of our planetary Lord, our planetary logos, our planetary life, whatever words you're comfortable with. So that is this physical, etheric. Etheric basically means vitality, life, right? And so for us, this is it's numbered on the side here. Number 7 is our physical body and all the various subplanes. The next plane is called the emotional, which is the 6th, and it's all the subplanes attached to that. The next one is called the mental and all the subplanes attached to that. Anything above this blue line here, right, deals with higher levels. Anything below this blue line, and this blue line, ooh, again I'm moving this, I don't want to do that. Anything below this blue line deals with what we call the 18 subplanes. If you were to count each one of these subplanes, you would come to 18 because there's 7 on the physical, 7 on the emotional, and only 4 that we're dealing with here on the mental. So 7 and 7 is 14 plus another 4 makes 18. This is the lower subplanes of our what we call a lunar nature, of our personality. And this is what eventually we have to redeem. This is what eventually we purify, all these lower subplanes. Now, I don't know if you can see this here, but on the 4th subplane of the entire mental plane is what is called the mental unit. See a little dot here, the mental unit. That mental unit basically represents, I say represents because it's not identical to, our personality, because by that time we're fairly mentally focused, our personality. And above that, it says here divine ego in a little triangle there that's in yellow. That is our soul. That is the causal body, or the egoic lotus, or the soul, or the ego with a capital E, as the Tibetan likes to call it, because it could be considered like an egg shape. All of that means that it's the soul. So the soul dwells, if I can use that word, within the plane of mind. See, all of that is the mind. And that's why it's called the son of mind. This is one of the levels of mind that we are trying to move towards. And please note, guys, it's only one subplane away from the personality. It's not that far. Soul isn't that far to reach. It's actually relatively close. You could reach up. You could reach up to soul. You can invite soul into your life, into your being. It's not that far away. It's one little subplane away. Unlike this part here, which is called the spiritual triad, which is the 3 aspects of the monad, which is up here. See, that's much further away. So the lowest point of the spiritual triad is the manas, and it is right here, still on the mental plane, because it deals with supposedly the mind of God. Then we have the intuition, which is on the 4th subplane, which is pure reason. And then we have spiritual will. All of that is considered like the personality of the spirit or monad. Now, these are further away. I grant you that. These levels are definitely harder to reach. But the soul, we can all aim for the soul. We all can aspire towards the soul. It's not that far away. So let's go back now to our theme, which has to do with the Antahkarana. So The central channel is shown right here, where it comes right down to the physical plane. That's the central channel. Actually starts right here at the monad, and it moves all the way down to the physical plane. That is the life aspect, and that is what keeps us alive. And the monad throws it right down to our physical form. That's why you cannot duplicate a human being. You can't give a human being life. Life has to come from your spirit self. You can create all kinds of things, but you can't give it life. Once that life is withdrawn, you're gone. Now, and that's only called the central channel, okay? And it goes here, 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 all the way up. Now, the two areas that we're concerned about, as we said earlier, is the lower Antahkarana and the higher Antahkarana. The lower Antahkarana, it links the personality, which is all of this, with the soul, linking concrete mind, right here, which is the mental unit, with the soul, and then right up to the bottom of the spiritual triad. This is called the lower Antahkarana. The higher Antahkarana is the bottom of the spiritual triad, eventually all the other parts of the spiritual triad right up to the monad. So that's later on. Right now our job is this. I have better drawings of this. Okay, here we go. So we have our personality, and everybody by now knows what the personality is, that the personality is comprised of our physical etheric form, our emotional or astral body, and our lower concrete mind or mental body. All of that comprised together to form what we call a personality. And that personality integrates and coordinates these three lower vehicles. Now, our job then is to move from the personality to the soul via this lower Antahkarana. And that is what we do constantly. We are constantly projecting to the soul. The minute you project your mind to the soul, you are moving through supposedly your Antahkarana. Then once we have contact with the soul and personality then need to project the Antahkarana towards the spiritual triad via, towards the monad via the spiritual triad, which is in here. So that's the higher Antahkarana and the lower Antahkarana. Okay, so we're just, opening up each thing that we've said greater and greater so that you can understand, because through understanding you're able then to work with it. So again, the lower Antahkarana is from the personality to the soul. For the average disciple, the goal is soul contact, which is increased opportunity to serve in the world and the taking of the first and the second initiations. The bridge is built in mental substance, and that's why the emphasis at the Morya Federation is all about meditating and working through mind. None of this la 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 land, because it's not going to get you anywhere. It just feels good. Got to work with the mind, and that's what an occultist, which all of you are, wants to do, is to work with the mind, because you're only going to get to the soul via the mind. The soul, after all, dwells on the plane of mind.
I just wanted to add, Eva, that one of the reasons to do this study and to develop this understanding is that it causes us to stretch our mind. So we're stretching from the concrete to the abstract mind when we do this kind of study in abstract thinking. So we're, in effect, stretching our consciousness, and that effort is also what is helping to build the Antahkarana.
Right, absolutely. Very well said. Thank you. Okay? Any other questions about the lower Antahkarana, which is just moving to soul? And this is our job right now, is to really, really connect with soul for most of us. Connect with soul. Once we have a certain measure of soul infusion into our personality, because soul will infuse. After all, soul is light. Soul is love. Soul is intelligence. Soul is will. It's all those. Light is just an overall term for all these things. But all of that infuses our cells. It infuses our being. And of course, everything changes. We change. Our behavior changes. The way we look at the world changes. The thoughts we have changes. The love we feel, we give, we understand changes as more soul infuses through and into our personality. So once there's a certain measure of that, and you can contact soul through meditation, then we can start working on the higher Antahkarana, the second half. So the goal for the higher disciples is soul contact and the building of the bridge in consciousness through the use of light substance between the soul and the spiritual triad. This involves already the third and fourth initiation. So you can see that this is for a higher level than what we are trying to work with, which is more this. And here are some other pictures depicting the same thing. Now this kind of schematic is based on a vertical model. I have found over the years that there are some people that work much better with a model that goes almost as concentric circles do, going deeper, 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 deeper. If that's the kind of way in which your head works, then use that model. If not, then the vertical model works for most people. I know it does for me, and that's why I teach a vertical model. But it's not the only way to consider the various states. One can go from the outer to the inner to the inner to the inner, dip deeper and deeper and deeper. So just kind of flip that and just go in. That's like a bullseye, right? So, okay, we're looking here again at the personality, which consists of, as I said, physical, etheric, astral, and mental. And you want to build the lower Antahkarana to the soul. And why is the soul in a triangle? Because the soul is intelligence, it is love, it is will. It's omniscience, omnipresent, and omnipotent. And then from there, you build the higher Antahkarana through the spiritual triad, through manas, which is higher mind, buddhi, which is really, really true love. Love that most of us, can't even fathom, because this is love without any conditions. This is what they call pure reason, intuition. Do we know what that is? I don't know. Do most of us think of intuition, that's a gut feeling, and that's not what this is. This is intuition and understanding what the life of deity, the life of God. I mean, it's a totally different level of intuition. Then we move up to Atma, which is the will, true spiritual will. It's a totally different will than the soul will. So these are levels that are beyond the average, beyond most of us. Any comments from anybody before we move on? How about my staff? Anybody want to say anything? I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but please, if you'd like to comment, it's a good time. And so we move along. Okay. Now, we're going to see again the same idea of the Constitution of Man in different modalities and in different graphics, also that you can orient your head around that. This is in the teachings themselves. If you've gone through various classes here, you may have come across this. This depicts the physical etheric body, the emotions. Well, the emotions are really right here in the solar plexus. The mind, the Antahkarana that we build to the soul, and the other Antahkarana, the higher, that we build to the spiritual triad, and of course the monad or spirit self. Okay, now this is a depiction of man, and same thing, all depicted within the human form. You have the chakras here represented, which we're not going to go into right now because that's not what this talk is about. And you have the energies moving up through the chakras, eventually with that life, the life stream going right up to the monad, right? This is the life stream or the Sushumna. And then we have the Ida and the Pingala going through the various chakras, all of them meeting really at the top of the head. And it's depicted here as wings because the solar angel who ensouls itself within the causal body is thought of as an angel, whether it be a guardian angel or what, and that's why the wings there. So here's another. See? The spinal column houses a threefold thread. This is the externalization of the Antahkarana. It's not the Antahkarana per se. It's an externalization. Just like our endocrine system is an externalization of our chakra system, right? So it's composed of the Antahkarana proper, which is the Sutratma or life thread, right here, and then the consciousness thread and the creative thread, which are these colored threads. These are called, in the Hindu terminology, the Ida and the Pingala, and the Sushumna, and they together form the path of life for the individual man, and awakened into activity sequentially, and according to ray type and point of evolution. So all of that, all the chakras, all of that is awakened sequentially, but they're still, it's not like you wait for one to totally open up and awaken and then the other one goes. There is definitely an order. We go from the bottom up, but every one of them is being touched as we grow and as we progress and as we evolve. Each one of them starts to unfold to some degree. Da-da, do you recognize this? This is the symbol that is used in medicine. And yet this is the symbol that represents us, right here. That is us. Again, it moves through the Sushumna right there, the central column, and it's the Ida and Pingala going through each one of the chakras, eventually goes to the top of the head, which is where the solar angel or the causal body dwells. And it's interesting that medicine has taken on this caduceus, which represents really us in symbolic form. So the aspirant eventually arrives at a point where the three threads, life, consciousness, and creativity, are being focused and reorganized as energy streams and utilized deliberately by the aspiring disciple upon the lower mental plane. So we always start with the lower mental plane, the concrete mind. This is why we meditate. This is why we stay focused. This is why we try to tune our mind and hone it in, because without working on the mind, we're not going to get anywhere. Esoterically speaking, we say that he takes his stand and looking upwards sees a promised land of beauty, love, and future vision. So we stand right on that mental plane. Now, I love this quote. It's from the Tibetan, and sometimes I just use that for people to spring off that and to give me thoughts and ideas. But we've pretty well covered most of this, so let's see what it says. The mental plane, which must be bridged, is like a great stream of consciousness or of conscious substance. And across this stream, the Antahkarana must be constructed. Now, we realize we're talking here about the entire mental plane, not just the lower concrete mind. We're talking about all three parts of the mind. We're talking about lower concrete mind has to bridge from there to the soul, which is the son of mind, and the son of mind, and from the son of mind eventually to the lowest point of the spiritual triad, which is manas. So that whole mental plane must be bridged. So it's like a great stream of consciousness or conscious substance, and across this stream, the Antahkarana must be constructed. This is the concept which lies behind this teaching and behind the symbolism of the path. Before a man can tread the path, he must become that path himself. Do we understand that? He must become the path himself. Out of the substance of his own life, he must construct this rainbow bridge, this lighted way. He spins it and anchors it as a spider spins a thread along which it can travel. I love this quote because what it tells you is that you build the Antahkarana out of your own substance, out of your own consciousness. If we had the eyes to see, and if we could see our Antahkarana, or if someone else could see it for us, they would see that the Antahkarana is in complete co-measurement to where you are at on the path. As much consciousness as you have infused into your being is reflected in the Antahkarana, which is the path, because you've created this path. And as it's lighted with the amount of light that you are. So you construct the Antahkarana out of your own light and your own substance. Do we truly understand that? And that's one of, again, I keep coming back to, that's why we meditate, that's why we serve, that's why we keep in the consciousness of our minds, spiritual living, because all of that helps us change, helps us change our frequency. And as we change our frequency, that path is more lighted. We spin it and anchor it, just like a spider spins a thread along which it can travel. It's got to spin the thread out of its own substance. There's nothing around that it uses. It's out of its own that it spins it. Likewise for us. So, to build the Antahkarana is to relate the three divine aspects of matter. The divine aspects: matter, consciousness, and spirit, right? So you have the creative thread, matter, the consciousness thread, which for all intents and purposes is really called the Antahkarana, and the spirit thread, which is the life thread. This involves intense mental activity. It necessitates the power to imagine and to visualize. I'm not sure if we really understand how important this part is, to imagine and to visualize. And one of the ways that we build the Antahkarana is constantly through imagining it. We imagine it, this pathway moving from our consciousness to the next point, whatever that is, whether it's soul or whether it is the lowest point of the spiritual triad. And we build it out of light. What we are told in the meditations and building the Antahkarana meditations is that we use the two colors of one our soul and the other one our personality. And it's like a thread. It's like a rope. I almost see the two colors spinning together and light it. Even though it's got a color, it's still lighted. So it's it's very alive. So this where am I here? It necessitates the power to imagine and to visualize, plus a dramatic attempt to build the lighted way in mental substance. This mental substance is of three qualities or nature, and the bridge of living light is the composite creation, having in it force, energy, and the energy from the spiritual triad. What do we mean by force? Well, let's look at energy first. Energy is that pure energy that we draw down from our soul, and it's done consciously. Force, on the other hand, is energy as it moves through our matters, energy as it moves through our personality, energy as it moves through our filters, whatever it is. So it's changed somewhat. It's not as pure anymore, because depending on how pure we are will depend on how that energy moves through us. That's why it's called force. So it contains force, it contains energy, and it contains energy that is abstracted from the spiritual triad. So all these three energies work together in their perfected way to create this wonderful Antahkarana. Now, we think we're building our own Antahkarana, which, yeah, we are, but there's no such thing as our own and our personal, just like there is no such thing as my soul. There's no individual soul. Soul is group. Same thing with the Antahkarana. It's being built by all infusing personalities, or even constructed unconsciously, but by all who are struggling to attain spiritual orientation. And that we know because the creative thread, going to the personality, is done unconsciously, and is rapidly becoming a strong cable composed of all the many threads of living light of consciousness and of life. These threads are blended and fused so that no one can truly say, my thread, my bridge, or my Antahkarana. So when we work with Michael, and if he is leading, for example, a full moon meditation or any other meditation, he has us build our own Antahkarana and then see the group Antahkarana, so that our Antahkarana is lit up within the larger whole, within the larger group. And you can see it better here. Yeah? Our Antahkarana is with the entire group Antahkarana. The many threads are the multicolors of the color of our personality rays and the color of our soul rays. These threads are blended and fused, forming a cord, one could say. And together as a group, we build the lighted way. Does that make sense? Can we understand that, right? And here's another beautiful depiction of that by Francis Donald. Truly the group, because we are all part of a much larger group, whether it's our soul group, whether it's the people in the Morya Federation, whether it's humanity as a group. We're all working with this Antahkarana. We're all building it and creating this pathway of light. Done. So, any questions on the Antahkarana? Any comments on the Antahkarana? This is the time, guys. Don't be shy. Ask or comment, whatever you'd like.
So I'll just throw in a comment. I think you mentioned it briefly there, Eva, but the way that we build the Antahkarana, we have three primary ways. They're really fused into one way, but it's through service, it's through meditation, and it's through study, or what I talked about before, working with the abstract mind. And every time we undertake one of those activities, we are weaving one of those threads that you talked about. And the more we do that consciously, the stronger we're going to build that Antahkarana. We might even think of it as fiber optic cable. And the cable may already be laid, but what we're trying to do is increase the bandwidth. So with every meditation, we're allowing more of those energies. We're both reaching up and allowing more of those energies to be able to flow down to us, both from the monad, the spiritual triad, and of course from the soul.
Beautiful. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much, Frida. Adrian, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Within the group Antahkarana, are there a series of groups within the one big group, like maybe a teachers group or a British group or a whatever? Yes,
You know, we're not actually told that, but, you know, we can use our imagination. We can visualize it in any way we wish. If that is comfortable for someone to visualize it as groups and within greater groups, why not? Because it's all one humanity, right? It's all one huge Antahkarana as we build the lighted way. So, I mean, if that works for you, yeah, why not?
Okay, thank you.
Another way of looking at it is that if we remember that line that Eva had on one of her charts between the fourth subplane and the fifth subplane of the mental plane, that represents a break in consciousness. It's not just a break in consciousness for us as individuals, but it's a break in consciousness for all humanity. So as we bridge and build our Antahkarana, it's like we are opening up those higher realms for all of humanity. So the expression of soul, the expression of the higher will aspect will now be able to come through and to manifest. It can now get through this barrier that was set up by humanity itself. And we have sort of pierced through that barrier into the higher realms.
Thank you. Helen.
Oh, hello, Eva.
Hello.
Would you please expand on the two colors of soul and personality? We know that colors are vibrations. Do they become individual colors for each person, or do they take on just two specific colors?
Okay, I don't know if you've studied the rays yet.
Yes, I have.
Okay, if you've studied the rays, then each ray is associated with a particular color. Actually, it's more than one color. It's associated with an exoteric color, which is the color of its personality, and it's associated with an esoteric color, which is the color of its consciousness or soul, so to speak. So, for the most part, let's just deal with the color of the ray that is its personality color. And for example, for the first ray, most of us identify the first ray as red. It's that red, that scarlet red color for the first ray. For the second ray, it's indigo blue. It's the color of it's the color of the second ray, we are told. The blue books, all of the Tibetan's books, they are that indigo blue color. It's the color of the night sky. The third ray color is green. The fourth ray color is yellow. The fifth ray color is orange. The sixth ray color is a rosy, it's a silvery rose. It's almost like a pinky color, silvery rose. And the color for the seventh ray is violet. Well, once you know your rays, right? For example,
Yes.
for me, my personality ray is the seventh ray, the ray of order, ceremonial order. And so therefore its color is violet. And my soul ray is the second ray, so its color is indigo blue. So then I work with both those colors, and I put them side by side, and I even twist them like a rope, right? I work them like a rope, much like, almost like this, You know, I work them like a rope, and I see those colors almost like neon. They are so bright, and they are so alive, and they are so lighted that those are my individual colors pertaining to me, because it's my soul ray and it is my personality ray. But then I bring in the group, and it is like one strand within a much larger cord that contains everybody else's colors. That's why it's called the rainbow bridge. All the colors are in there. Does that help?
Yes, it helps tremendously. So if when we get to the group, then are all those rainbow colors just as vibrant, or does it depend on the evolution of that group as to the vibrancy and as to the intensity of color?
Technically, yes, it would depend on the evolution of all participants. However, you know, we use our imagination here. We use our visualization. And I visualize it all very bright and very lit up and very lighted, because energy follows our thoughts. Energy follows our train of thinking. So I'm hoping I'm contributing to that, you know, aspiring of everybody towards that.
And is it helpful to keep those colors in mind in meditation if we're trying to build the Antahkarana?
If you're working on building the Antahkarana, then yes. But if you're working on a different part of your meditation, then you're working on a different part of your meditation.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody else?
Malia?
Okay, Malia. Hi, Malia.
Hi, Eva. Does Master DK give any indication anywhere if there's any way to tell how you're doing in the process, either as individuals or as groups?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know what? That's why we are always told you need to really take a sober look at yourself and try to ascertain where you're at on the path. It doesn't matter what course you're in. You're always asked, where do you think you are? Where do you think you are based on everything you've learned so far? All the qualifications that are necessary for this level and for the next level and for the next level. And you have to be as honest as you can within yourself. And
Well,
unless you have,
yeah, sorry,
unless you have the master.
They talked about building it, you know, and working on it, and it gets sort of, you build strength in it and you build dimension to it. And so I'm just wondering if there's,
okay.
whether
I mean,
that's something
I can see you.
In initiation.
Again, I'm going to go back to something I said earlier. Where you're at in your point of evolution is reflected in the Antahkarana you've been building. So where you're at as far as initiations are concerned will be a direct, in direct proportion to the amount of light that this Antahkarana is.
Okay.
So can we tell? You know, it becomes, you have to be as honest as you can within yourself. Many people have overestimated themselves. Many people have underestimated where they're at. Unless you've got a master who's working with you, I'm not sure any of us really truly know. But we have an idea because we kind of know through feedback and through being honest with ourselves where we think we stand upon the path.
Mm-hmm.
So the short answer is no, he doesn't tell us.
Okay.
Another thing, though, he does tell us that no effort is ever wasted. So every effort we have in spiritual service, meditation, and study, none of that effort was ever wasted because every time we did that, a thread of that Antahkarana was being built. So we are taking step by step, inch by inch, in a forward direction of building that Antahkarana.
Mm-hmm. Well, at the personality level,
and if nothing else,
okay.
If nothing else, all we need to know is that these are the treasures that we take with us for future, you know, for the next incarnation. This is the treasures we've built into ourselves that we bring with us for next time around. You know, we bring nothing else but...
After we croak.
I'm sorry?
We find out after we croak.
After we croak? Yeah. Well, you know what they say, that in that Bardo state that we go in, we assess our life and we see did we in fact complete everything that we were supposed to work on? Was it a successful life? You know, did we learn what we had to? So maybe there's a very sober time of humility and really assessing where we're at. But unfortunately, we don't remember. Like, you know, it's like the brain doesn't remember any of that.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we have Monica next, right? Let me unmute you, Monica. Hello, Monica. Whoops, that didn't work. Try it again. Hello, Monica.
Yes, hello, Eva. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Wonderful. Yes, oh, thank you. I just have a question. Could you perhaps explain a little bit the difference between substance and matter?
Uh-huh. You know, we're going to go into a whole other area, but that's okay. All matter is composed of substance, and substance is the Davic lives that comprise matter. Davic is another way of saying angelic, but it's on so many different levels. The more concrete matter is, the less vibratory rate these lives or these Davic lives vibrate at. The higher the substance is, the higher the level of vibration for these Davic lives is. And I mean, the gamut of the thousands and thousands of Davic lives that is used or that comprise matter is unbelievable to us. It's a whole reorientation of the way our head works to understand that Davic life makes up matter or makes up substance, that is substance. I know that it took me like a real spinning of my head to come to terms with that some time ago, that everything is made up of substance, Not just matter, which is solid, like a table, but even that is substance. And that's why decay, it falls apart once the life is taken out of it. I don't know. Did that answer your question at all?
Yes, yes. What was quite an important word, because we are always told that we are to redeem the substance.
That's right.
So are we to redeem Devic lives?
That's right. Very good. Yes, because you see, as we evolve, the lives, which, as I said earlier, on the 18 subplanes that were considered lunar, where am I here? Here. All these 18 subplanes that are considered lunar become infused with where we're at as we evolve, and therefore we are redeeming these lunar lives. They then go, and when we pass away, they then go into a reservoir, and if they can move up, so to speak, into the next level, they do. We are constantly redeeming and purifying these lives as we change. That's not to say that there aren't Devic lives on the higher planes as well. Even our causal body is comprised of the substance that the solar angel has built it out of itself, which is solar angel substance, very, very highly evolved substance. So on every level there is Devic lives. And we need to redeem, but we don't have to consciously think about, oh, are we redeeming them right now? But as we evolve and as we change, we automatically redeem them and uplift them.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, that was a good question. Anybody on the staff want to tackle this question too?
Hi, Eva. This is BL.
Hi, BL.
I just wanted to say, number one, you did a really good job of explaining it, but that was one of the important things. One of my aha moments was understanding that, the Devic lives are the actual form that we inform with our soul, and as we progress in our life of the soul, we're changing, we're raising their matter. And there's the angelic consciousness and their evolution, and there's the human consciousness and their evolution, and they go side by side. But for the lower Devic lives, the lower elemental lives, we are the only way that they can be raised in our particular scheme. So it's as you said, our consciousness, our light that we gather into our body then radiates to the substance that it is made out of. So like I said, that was one of the big aha moments I had when I finally started putting some of these pieces together, reading the blue books.
Yeah, thank you, BL. Well said. Yes. Yeah. Any other comments, questions?
Eva, it's Kay here.
Yes, Kay.
I'd just like to inform you, the students here, that we do have a great compilation on the Antahkarana in the Ageless Wisdom compilation site, and it is a great to read that, as well as re-listening to the recording of this, and you sort of are able to put together such a lot of things by reading the compilation and then re-listening to this recording again. A lot of stuff will fall into place, because building the Antahkarana is also connected to the science of impression.
And how do they access this?
If they can join as a member of the Ageless Wisdom compilations website.
So it's agelesswisdom.com? How is it?
Ageless Wisdom compilations. It's at Yahoo.
Yeah, it's a Yahoo group. So it's the yahoo.com or whatever, and then you join the group.
And these various, I know that there are so many different compilations, but this compilation on the Antahkarana is great. It's all from the Tibetans' books.
Yes.
And
yes. Alice Bailey CD-ROM, yes.
Right, and someone has taken the time to pull out, to extract all the various comments, teachings that he gave us regarding the Antahkarana. It's a little
Yes.
dry, it's not sequential, it's not necessarily in any kind of order for learning purposes, but it is excellent material. You know, you don't have to be in the right headspace, and you don't have to read all of it at one time, but it certainly will expand your understanding of the Antahkarana. Because we've just touched on a little bit, you know, an early introduction to it, really. You know, we didn't go into great detail here. Well, it is detail, but not, you know what I'm saying, not that much. Anybody else? Well, if there's nothing here on the Antahkarana, how about we open this up to any question and answer? Because we did offer that in our website, that this is going to be question and answer as well as the Antahkarana.
Eva, would you like to entertain Yvonne's question that she had written ahead of time?
Yes, please read it to the group.
If the purpose of the solar logos is love, what is the purpose of the cosmic logos?
So Yvonne, you're really asking a very, very difficult question here. The reason I say that is because our knowledge is twofold. One is through revelation, and the other one is what we have learned through what the Tibetan and other books have offered us. And in the scheme of things, I don't think we've been introduced to more than the purpose of our own solar logos. If our solar logos is one of 7, it creates a much larger entity called the one about whom not may be said, and we don't know its purpose. Is that the cosmic logos? It could be. If you read certain parts of Cosmic Fire, it makes that seem like that's the cosmic logos. If you read something else in Cosmic Fire, then there is another cosmic logos that might even be greater than that one. So it's hard to know who or what is the cosmic logos. But all we know is that the mandate for this solar system is love. For the previous solar system, it was intelligence. For the next solar system, whenever that'll be, it'll be will. It'll be the first aspect. So what'll happen after we perfect these 3 aspects of deity? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe our solar logos will have reached a point in its evolution that is so great that the body of which it is part of, and we don't know if it is a heart center. I think it is. It might, the whole body of which it's a part of might be much, much more evolved, and who knows what its next mission might be. So I really cannot tell you the answer to that, because I don't think any of us really knows. Okay, Yvonne? Okay. So, any other questions related to anything? Yvonne I don't know if you can actually, I've unmuted you, Yvonne.
Yeah, now I can answer you. I was muted before. I couldn't answer you. This
Right.
was a question that was brought up in our study group a week ago, that since our solar logos is the second solar system, this is a love one, and then we're talking about the cosmic Christ and that then the cosmic logos had to be loved too. And I thought, well, how do you know this? Maybe he's working on will or intelligence or something like that. So the answer is no one knows, right?
No one knows. But when we refer to the cosmic Christ, I would still maintain that within the system of which we are a part of. When we refer to the cosmic Christ, I don't fathom moving beyond our system. I don't have the capabilities to go there in my consciousness. Mm-hmm. So cosmic Christ, I think, is still our cosmos.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'll turn myself off here.
Okay. Um, did I lose everybody? No. Are you all still there?
We hear you.
Yeah, we got a bunch of us still here.
Are you still all there? Okay, so how about more questions or comments? We have the time, so let's take advantage.
We have a question from Marion Ryan.
Okay.
Marion's question is, would the monadic ray hold a stronger ray link in the Antahkarana than the soul and personality rays?
Okay, that's I think I understand the question. See, the Antahkarana is the thread that we are building, and if we are building that, then it's our consciousness that we are building it out of. That is the emphasis for the Antahkarana. The monad, the monadic ray, it gets a little complicated here because we are learning that there is a minor ray and there's a major ray, and I'm not sure that at this point we can even know which is the minor and which is the major. It takes an awful lot of meditation and being able to access those realms. But I wouldn't think that as we build the Antahkarana that the monadic ray would really hold that much sway here. The most important thing is that we build it out of our consciousness. It's not even the ray itself that is the important thing. It's the consciousness that's important. It's the lighting of the pathway that is important. Yes, we do use the colors of our personality and our soul. Maybe that is the link that we need in order to visualize, you know. But I think more than the colors, it's lighting it, and lighting it we do through consciousness. So I hope, Marion, I've addressed your question. Okay. Anybody else? Oh, come on. There's got to be more questions. I see Yvonne. Yvonne, is your hand up? You've self-muted yourself, so maybe your hand is up still from before. Okay. Hi, Yvonne.
I raised it again.
Taken off your self-mute.
Hi there.
Oh, you did.
I meant to ask you, this Age of Wisdom compilations at Yahoo.com, is that free?
Yes.
It is.
Yes. Yes, it is. And there's so many different compilations there. It's mind-boggling.
And you just talked about the same colors, the personality and the soul ray, going from the soul, from the spiritual triad up to the monad.
Well, you want to start with the soul-infused personality. So you want to start somewhere in your heads, you know, on the mental plane, you know, where soul resides. So you want to start there. So you always bring in the soul, and then you create the thread or the threads with the two colors, and then you project that. You see the bridge going from you know, your head space to the triad, the lower triad, and then you can go to Buddhi, and then you can go to Atma, and then you can go to Soul, and then you light it. You project out and you light the whole bridge, the whole pathway once you've created it. So you create it first, constantly create, and then when you want to enliven it, you project that. It is done through the will. I mean, there's a whole method to this, and it's part of maybe what you receive in higher courses on how to work with the meditation for the Antahkarana.
Okay. Well, that's third and fourth initiation anyway, so.
So I think all we need to really worry about is yeah, is building this conscious, is building the Antahkarana and giving it light, you know, seeing it lit up, seeing it alive, as it is here, you know. It's lit up with our thread, or here, you know.
Thank you, Eva.
Okay.
Pardon me, I can send this Antahkarana compilation out to Morya students, but if anybody else wants it, you might need to email me and I can send it to you.
And it's your email address is?
Is kay.aquarius@gmail.com.
Perfect. Okay, so anybody that wants that, I know Kay has volunteered to send it off to you. That's great. Okay. So I don't know if all of you are in the Morya Federation or not, and as you are studying and working through whether it's Meditation Quest or Great Quest or Quest Universal, you've come across, I'm sure, the whole idea of the Antahkarana, and hopefully you can work with it a little bit, more lighted now that you have a greater understanding of it. But always keep in mind that no effort is ever lost, that whatever we do, it stays with us and helps build consciousness into other fields that we're working with. Okay. Okay, we have another question here, and it's Monica. Why am I not undoing you? Monica, are you self-muted? There you go.
Yes, can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes, Monica.
Is it always absolutely necessary? Yes, Eva.
Yes.
Is it always necessary absolutely to meditate in order to build the Antahkarana? Because, for example, if I think of scientists who are often, let's say, very deep thinkers, and at a certain point get what they call an inspiration, isn't that also a way? Because many of them don't, in the particular sense, meditate, I would think, as we do it.
You know, I've thought about this a lot, and I would see even business people, whether business people or scientists, they take a lot of time out to ponder, to think things out, to sit with something. And when they sit with something, they create a space that allows for a soul to be contacted. So, they've created that space, and then something may drop into their consciousness. It might drop in from soul, and yes, it might drop in from somewhere higher than soul, whether it's the spiritual triad or the rain cloud of knowable things. There's so many different ways that we have of describing this, but it's because they have already spent the time in deep thought. They haven't maybe done a formal meditation the way we are suggesting that we do. All I can say is that a formal meditation, the way we work with here at Morya Federation, engages the mind, and in doing that, we put ourselves on the fast track. It's not to say that others don't access higher levels. Sure they do, but we're on a fast track. And I think that if we're at all interested in this kind of work, then that's what we want. We want to get there. The faster we can get there, the better. That's what everyone always says, you know. They want the experience. They want to know. They want to get there. They want to be more evolved. They want to go to the next initiation, and on and on and on. So, you know, different rays bring us to different groups. This kind of groups tends to attract a lot of second ray, third ray, fifth ray. Other organizations, whether it's science or business or art, may attract different kinds of rays, and therefore they will get to where they need to get in their own way. I hope that helps. All I can say is that the Tibetan definitely says meditation, service is the way, you know, and so other people might serve in their own way. And it may not be our way of serving, and it may not even be our way of meditating, but at some point they do still the mind. And it's the stilling of the mind that helps them create that pathway. I mean, we're just following a methodology. That's all we're doing. We're following a methodology that's been given to us. It's obviously not the only way.
Yes, thank you.
I was going to say, too, that abstract thought is about expanding human consciousness. So if we think about scientists and mathematicians and philosophers, they're engaging in abstract thought. And they are stretching their own consciousness. They are building the Antahkarana because they're reaching up to that abstract mind. And you have to go through soul to get to abstract mind. So they're stretching their consciousness, and by bringing down new theories, new ideas, they are also expanding human consciousness. So yes, they are building the Antahkarana just as much as any meditator is building the Antahkarana.
Good point, Frida, yes.
We have a question from Tracy. Tracy asks, do you think the Kundalini must be well risen for the Antahkarana to begin to be fully formed, as if the top of the end of the Kundalini makes the bottom end of the Antahkarana?
And the short answer to that is no. The Kundalini rising, again, is in direct proportion to where you're at as you grow and evolve. The Kundalini rising, when it finally reaches the top, is what we call God realization. And that is usually the third initiation. And the Antahkarana has been well nigh built before that. So, no, the Kundalini could, let's say, as we develop and open up and awaken the heart, and we become so heartfelt, the Kundalini has learned to rise up to the heart. And maybe that's as far as it has gone. Well, the heart in the meantime is very expanded, and we work on service and love. But by the time it reaches the top of the head, then that's usually about the third initiation. And that is, yeah, that's when we become soul infused. 3/4% or 75% of our being is totally alit with soul energy.
Malia has a question about book recommendations. She wonders if you recommend the books that are titled The Rainbow Bridge, there are a couple of them out, or Rick Prater's book entitled Bridge to Superconsciousness.
In all honesty, I haven't read them. I'm not familiar with them. My books are pretty well these days all the Tibetans' books. I've learned that everything else pales compared to what the Tibetan has written. And when I read the Tibetan's work, I'm always so, I always feel so much more expanded, so much more stretched. And every time I read it, I get something else out of it. And I almost feel like he's writing to me. He's addressing me. It's like I've learned the language, and I've learned how he puts his thoughts together, and all I can tell you is that I love it, and I don't expose myself right now to the other books that are out there.
I'll weigh on it because I have read those books, and I do recommend them. They're actually quite good, and they're written by two disciples of Alice Bailey, Norman and Josephine Stevens, I think their name was, Stevenson. So they're very good. So they're excellent, and they do build on the Alice Bailey work, but they do bring it down and make it more for everybody. So yeah, I think they're good.
Okay, there you go. Thank you, Frida. Other thoughts, questions? Well, if we're not going to, go forward with more questions, then we will be signing off and saying goodbye. And what we're going to do is unmute all of you, and we'll do a nice Om together. How's that? In the meantime, I want to thank you all for attending. And so, guys, how do I remove the mute? I've tried here, and I can't seem to do that. How do we unmute everybody?
You just go through everyone and unmute them.
You have to do them all individually?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep, one by one.
I didn't know that. Okay. So maybe you can help me out. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have everybody unmuted, and we can all say one long Om. And again, I want to thank you all very much for attending, for your questions. They were very stimulating. And thank you to the staff. And you can hear the echo. This is what we're talking about, all that background noise. So, okay, are we ready? Let's all Om together. And again, thank you. And bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
You're welcome. That was Walter.
Thank you.
Bye, Eva.
Thank you.